Good afternoon, everybody in Heart Failure Land. As you can see, this is quite a different format yet again. I'm having some work done at home, so my normal sort of office machine isn't available because the workmen are in doing stuff. So I've had to improvise. But you know what? I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that possibly this is a better solution to my problems than the ones I've used before. I might use this system on a weekly basis now, actually. Well, we'll have to see. It looks pretty good. Anyway, at least the lips and the sound are going at the same time. You know what I mean? That's got to be something said for it. So, what sort of a week have I had? Well, you've been quite quiet this week. There hasn't really been an awful lot of correspondence for me to deal with. I've had one or two ideas for essays. And they're all good ideas so far. What I want to say to you is this, and I'm going to aim these remarks particularly at my friends over in Saudi Arabia. Number one, if you pick a subject that's very general and broad, heart failure, left ventricular systolic dysfunction, then that you'll get a perfectly good essay out of that, but it will be hard for you to get top marks, and the reason for that is that you will have to be turning over stuff which is non-controversial and very general and very broad. Whereas if you pick a controversial subject, if you pick a subject which addresses a key problem, then it will be easier for you to get higher marks. Why? Because you'll need to be arguing your case. A good idea, I always think, a good idea for writing an essay is to start off with a question. Are nurse-led heart failure clinics worth the money? Does exercise improve people's cardiac output? And then, because you've asked a question, you've got to presumably have both sides of the argument, and therefore, that automatically will incline you towards analysis and criticism. You see what I mean by that? So think on about that. Don't be going down the route of very broad, general subjects. Try and find something that's a bit controversial, and you'll find that the essay will be more interesting to write on. So, what else have I had? I've had suggestions for essays. Good. I've also had one item on the discussion board there from Rosalind, I think it was. Yeah, wasn't it you, Rosalind? And this was, she said that 15 to 20 years ago, when they got patients in for heart surgery, they were giving them prophylactic antibiotics because there was a lot of rheumatic fever around in northern India. But after that, it's kind of disappeared as a disease in India too. That's interesting. When I was in practice, in the early 90s, in a cardiothoracic centre, we were still getting patients through who had suffered from rheumatic fever in the 1950s, and they all had a similar sort of look to them, really. Certainly the women did. Very small women, very sort of light, very easy to nurse. And the reason for that being that the disease, the rheumatic fever, had damaged their entire existence, really, and it kind of caused them to be low stature and low weight. And invariably in atrial fibrillation for mitral valves, anyway. Invariably in atrial fibrillation. Right, back to essays. I want to start seeing drafts now. I want to see where you're up to with your essays. And in particular, I want to see that even people who've done the exercise, of sending me 3 sentences. The sentences that come in very frequently have references in the list which aren't correct. And I'm looking directly at you in Saudi Arabia. This obviously hasn't been part of your educational upbringing, but I'm sending you back, for everybody who sends me a thing about referencing, I'm sending you back a perfect reference. And that is what I want every reference of yours to look like. I want you to use journal articles, don't use websites, and don't even use books. Use journal articles and do them precisely in the way that I've outlined. I think it was useful that I've actually colour-coded the different elements of the reference list so you can take a look at where your references differ from the one that is perfect. And the only reason why that one is perfect is that it's been done by a machine, and the machine that's done it is RefWorks. So I know I keep going on about RefWorks, but it's worth it. It really is worth it if you can put the work in. So if you do get a draft and you want me to comment on it, then put it in through Turnitin, and then I will know that you can use the system. And that will mean, therefore, that the night before submission date, I'm not having trouble sleeping because I'm worrying about whether or not you're going to get your essays in on time. I noticed this week that we've got clinical assessment in heart failure. Very interesting subject, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy listening to Chris Nicholson talking about it, because he is very skilled in that department. Okay, so nothing much else to tell yet. Nobody's been on Facebook that I know, but it's a great way of keeping in touch. If you want to get in touch with me quickly, it comes up on my phone when I'm on the train. Other than that, I shall see you next week. Bye now.